The senator from Georgia.
Mr. President, I thank the senator from Connecticut for his recognition, but I want to take this moment on the floor to praise him for the contribution he's made to the committee over the last 2 years. I want to tell you a story. Richard became ranking member the same year and the same time I became chairman. We made a commitment to one another. We were going to move forward on a united Veterans Committee, address the problems of our veterans, and do it in a bipartisan fashion. To set the tone for that, we introduced the Clay Hunt Suicide Prevention Act, which Richard Blumenthal introduced, and passed unanimously in the committee and 99-0 on the floor of the Senate in the first weeks of this Congress. We did so to set the table that whatever the problem is, the problems are not, we should never let our pettiness and our politics and our partisanship stop us from helping a veteran. And because of Richard Blumenthal and his effort on suicide prevention and our commitment to make it bipartisan, we passed that unanimously early on in the session, and since that time have addressed other issues that well. In fact, the bill that we discussed today, which is named in part for Richard Blumenthal, is, as he said a minute ago, a down payment on the continuing debt we owe to our veterans who have served us well. I said that first day in the committee when I took over as chairman, you know, there are no Republican veterans and no Democratic veterans. There are only American veterans. There are the Americans that fought for our flag, fought for our Constitution, fought for our liberty, and fought for each of us. And I'm proud to have fought with Richard in the foxhole of the United States Senate for our veterans. There is much left to be done. But with the passage of this act today, which is named after Senator Blumenthal and Congressman Jeff Miller, who's retiring in the House, we're making another down payment on what we owe our veterans. There are other payments soon to come. I met earlier today with John McCain. We've made a commitment to make sure veterans' choice is made permanent to our veterans and work to see to it that veterans have the best choice they can have. Not to privatize the VA, but to optimize the exposure of veterans to health care services wherever they need them. I met last night with John Tester, our colleague from Montana, who will replace Richard as the new ranking member on the committee. He is equally committed with us to see to it that we move beyond the current sunset of the choice program to solve the choice program as well as the other problems that confront our veterans. We're a team of Americans, not Republican Americans or Democratic Americans, but committed Americans to see to it that our veterans get what was promised to them. As Senator Blumenthal said, this bill addresses homelessness. It addresses women's health care issues. It addresses the possible passage of exposure to toxic waste in a hereditary fashion to our surviving children and grandchildren of our veterans, an obligation that we owe to see to it that if there is any transfer of the exposure to those toxic substances, that the VA benefits that go to the veteran also can be passed down to the child who is a victim of heredity through no fault of their own. We do a lot on the court and the appeals. We have 450,000 appeals in a backlog, as Senator Blumenthal said. We're adding 2 judges in the appeals process, and we need to do more to expedite the appeals process. I was personally disappointed this year that as close as we got to dealing with the administration and finding a solution, we still failed to say to our veterans, we're going to solve your problem of waiting in line. I had the sad duty of breaking into tears myself in the living room of a veteran 2 weeks ago back in my home in Marietta, Georgia. A veteran who's been trying for 3 years to get an appeal responded to and can't get it. A veteran whose life is about to end with him never getting an answer as to whether his appeal is justified or not. That is just not right. We can find a way in this country to get the manpower and womanpower necessary, make the moral commitment that's imperative, and see to it our veterans who have an appeal get an expeditious answer, and our veterans need to cooperate in that process by giving us all the backup data as fast as possible for every appeal they ask for. But it is not right for an appeal to last as long as one that's before us in the United States Veterans Administration today, which is 25 years old. That's right. The oldest appeal is 25 years old in the Veterans Administration. I am committed, and I make the commitment on the floor of the Senate today, to work with Richard, John Tester, the members of our committee, and everybody in this body to see to it we say to the 450,000 veterans who are waiting on an appeal, we're going to get you an answer and we're going to get it faster. And to say to those sons and daughters who today are signing up for the United States military, if you have a need for an appeal, we're going to see to it you get an expeditious answer. They deserve the very best, and they deserve no less than a thorough answer in response to the appeal that they make. But it's been a privilege and a pleasure for me the last years to work as chairman, last 2 years to work as chairman of the Veterans Committee. It's been a pleasure to work with Richard Blumenthal, and I commend him on the contribution that he has made. It's equally been great to work with his staff, who've worked closely with us to see to it we brought the best legislation possible to the floor of the Senate. And I particularly want to thank Tom Bowman, my chief of staff, who's made a lot of magic things happen during these last 2 years. But things have just begun in the Veterans Commission of the United States Senate. We're going to work together to reach the dreams that we all have, to see to it our veterans have seamless services, and that we pay back to them what we owe them, equally what they sacrificed and pledged for us: their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. So as chairman of the committee, I'll yield the floor to the senator from Pennsylvania by thanking the Senator from Blumenthal for his support and asking each of our members in the United States Senate today to help us pass this down payment on the promise and the debt that we owe to the veterans of the United States of America. And I yield to the senator from Pennsylvania.
Mr. President.
Senator from Pennsylvania.